This is a guide horse. Yes, a guide horse. And this is the favorite snack astronauts stash away before blasting off to space. From the professor who forgot where his class was because of Dungeons and Dragons to the FBI's Falafel project, I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 fascinating, today I learned, facts you'll want to slip into every conversation this week. 25. We're about to see a lot of temporary face tattoos. Some jobs demand so much focus that even a tiny slip-up can turn into a disaster. So scientists at the University of Texas came up with a face tattoo to fix all that. Okay, I made it sound worse than it is. It's only a temporary tattoo, not permanent, and it shows up as a series of dark wavy lines across your forehead using graphite-based conductors to read signals from the brain and track your eye movements. If it spots mental fatigue, it can alert a phone app before you make a mistake. Researchers think it could be a lifesaver for pilots, doctors, or anyone working high-stress shifts. It might even work with AI helpers a bit further down the road. 24. There's a reason for everything. Chainsaw safety manuals around the world actually remind users not to hold the wrong end of the saw, because enough people have done exactly that. In the 80s, Sweden recorded a spike in injuries among casual operators who tried to restart a jammed saw or clear a brush and ended up grabbing the running chain. Some even braced the saw on their own legs to pull start it, with the expected gruesome results. One poor guy needed dozens of stitches after grabbing the bar, thinking that the chain had stopped. The injuries became so common all around the world that the warning became a standard label worldwide. So yes, there really is a reason for everything, including warnings you and I might find silly. 23. Nirvana had a lot of names. Nirvana once performed under the name Fecal Matter. Yep, before they settled on their iconic name, Kurt Cobain and his bandmates cycled through a whole bunch of cringeworthy titles, like Brown Towel, Skid Row, Ted Ed Fred, and even Pen Cap Chew. The first confirmed time they called themselves Nirvana was in 1988 when they played the Community World Theater in Tacoma, Washington. Kurt even listed their past names on the show flyer so people wouldn't get confused. He wanted something beautiful instead of gritty and punk, and, well, that's how Nirvana stuck. Still, one of their old names did live on in their music. Pen Cap Chew eventually made it onto a 2004 album release. 22. According to the Mongolians, a haircut can kill you. Mongolians believe you should see a witch doctor before getting a haircut. Now, you and I might find that a bit extreme, but according to one Mongolian legend, wandering spirits without a home can sometimes settle in our hair, clinging to the living for a place to rest. If you cut your hair while one of these souls is attached to you, you will end up killing both the spirit and yourself. So, before picking up the scissors, many Mongolians still consult a witch doctor or shaman who checks for any hidden spirits and gives the all clear. 21. Gravity was the most realistic space movie ever. The 2013 film Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, is one of the most realistic space movies ever made. And before you say something nasty in the comments below, that's not just my opinion. It comes straight from former NASA astronaut Garrett Reisman. After the movie's release, Reisman was asked how close it came to the truth. He admitted that the laws of physics got twisted for dramatic effect, but the film still captured the look and feel of a real spacewalk, better than any other sci-fi blockbuster he'd ever seen before. From the gentle drifting through zero gravity to the way Bullock worked through emergency shutdowns, the film's small details had Reisman genuinely impressed. He pointed out that she even reached for the right valves to cut off oxygen and pressed the correct buttons to navigate the Soyuz. Moves you would only know if you had trained for years as an astronaut. 20. A guide horse named Panda. Most of us think of a Labrador Retriever when we picture a guide animal, but a miniature horse can fill that role just as well. Panda, the miniature horse, has been helping her owner, Ann Eddie, for years. Ann, who's been blind since birth, worked as a special education teacher and lived a full life with the help of her previous guide dog, Bailey, for 10 years. When Bailey died, Ann struggled to find a replacement, trying and failing with 2 new dogs. That's when she discovered Panda. Although a miniature horse might not be practical for everyone, they can live up to 30 years, which makes them a great option for people who want to avoid the stresses of replacing a guide animal again and again. 19. Sunscreen has received an upgrade. There's been an upgrade to sunscreen, but sadly, we can't buy it yet. The prototype actually cools you while protecting you from sunburn. I kid you not. Standard sunscreen blocks ultraviolet rays to help prevent skin cancer, but it doesn't do much about the sun's heat, which hits you as infrared radiation. The new formula uses a nano-sized titanium dioxide reflecting both UV and infrared rays. Tests in the lab showed it could provide an SPF of about 50, hold up in water, and last about 12 hours under intense conditions. But real-world trials were even more impressive. People testing it in hot, humid places saw their skin temperature drop by as much as 11 degrees compared to the usual sunscreens, which is huge if you're working or playing outside all day. Can't wait to use that to go to Disney. 18. China's hand cannon. Firearms are a lot older than most people think. One of the oldest surviving examples is the Heilongjiang hand cannon from China, which dates back to the late 1200s. It doesn't really look like a modern gun, but it used the same basic idea. Pack in gunpowder, light a fuse, and launch a deadly projectile. This cannon had a bulb-shaped chamber for powder, a small ignition hole, and a space for a wooden handle. It weighed nearly 8 pounds and was about 13 inches long, so it was hefty, but still manageable. Still, it helped to kickstart the evolution of firearms, so, we'll give it respect where it's due. 17. How to sort out rowdy students. A landlord once got a bunch of rowdy college athletes under control by calling their coach. The tenants, a group of football and golf players, were throwing crazy parties, trashing the place, and letting guests relieve themselves in neighbors' yards. I'm not even going to talk about the parking. The landlord tried the usual things to get them under control, going to their parents and even the police, but nothing worked. Finally, he decided to get in touch with their coach, hoping that he might scare them straight. And he absolutely did. The coach made the players run extra laps at practice over and over until the message sank in. After that, the parties calmed down, the neighbors stopped complaining, and the landlord could breathe again. 16. The Dutch are just different. Dutch judges aren't allowed to toss out unconstitutional laws. In the Netherlands, even if Parliament passes something that goes completely against the Constitution, the courts have to let it stand. Article 120 of their Constitution makes it crystal clear: no judicial review of laws on constitutional grounds. For anyone used to judges striking down bad legislation, this sounds unorthodox, to say the least. But Dutch lawmakers believe democracy should rest with the people's elected representatives, not unelected judges. Defenders say it keeps power in Parliament, where voters can hold politicians accountable, while critics argue it puts minorities at risk with no backup plan if lawmakers go too far. No matter how you see it, in the Netherlands, judges apply the law exactly as written without stepping in to question whether Parliament went over the constitutional line. 15. 2 guys and an inaccessible plane wreck. 2 ordinary guys from Boston went to a deadly glacier where search teams wouldn't, and recovered pieces of a plane wreck left there for decades. Eastern Airlines Flight 980 crashed in Mount Illimani near La Paz, Bolivia in 1985, killing all 29 on board. The Bolivian Air Force located the wreck the very next day, but declared the site too dangerous for a proper recovery. So for 30 years, the wreck stayed untouched. Dan Futrell and Isaac Stoner decided to change that. With no mountaineering experience, they trained, geared up, and climbed the mountain in 2016, finding scattered debris, clothing, and even human remains still frozen in the ice, which they marked for later recovery. They managed to bring back metal parts and a spool of tape they hoped were from the black boxes, but tests revealed it was just a Spanish TV show. The real recorders are still there. 14. Lost shipping containers are a haven for marine wildlife. There's a shipping container sitting on the ocean floor in California that turned into a weird accidental experiment for scientists all around the world. Lost off Monterey Bay in 2004, this upside-down 40-foot steel box turned into a deep-sea apartment complex for snails, crabs, tube worms, and fish, with its influence spreading nearly 30 feet in every direction. Researchers from MBARI and NOAA have checked in on it multiple times over the years, most recently in 2021, and found that the metal barely corroded, while colonies of tunicates, tube worms, and other creatures grew and shifted around it. The big question is how these marine time capsules might affect invasive species, pollution, or delicate ecosystems, especially since new IMO rules in 2026 will improve tracking, but still won't prevent containers from sinking in the first place. 13. Tunnel 57. There's nothing an innovative student won't do, including turning an old bakery into the launch point for one of the biggest tunnel escapes of the Berlin Wall. In 1965, Joachim Neumann, who had already fled East Germany with a forged Swiss passport, was desperate to reunite with his girlfriend, Christa Greuer, still stuck on the other side. With a dozen helpers, he started digging from that abandoned bakery using nothing but buckets and shovels. They worked in secret for 5 months, tunneling nearly the length of a football field and crashing at the bakery between exhausting shifts. When the border guards finally caught on, chaos broke out at the checkpoint, with one guard accidentally shooting and killing another. The tunnel didn't last long after that. Authorities sealed it off, but it had already done the job, helping 57 people reach the west. 12. Tourists are ruining the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. Tourists are destroying one of Northern Ireland's most famous natural landmarks with pocket change. The Giant's Causeway, with its thousands of interlocking basalt columns, has stood strong for nearly 60 million years. But lately, visitors have taken to jamming coins into the narrow cracks between the rocks, thinking it's a harmless wish or a souvenir trick. It's not. As those coins rust, they expand up to 3 times their original size, forcing the columns apart and weakening the entire formation. The accompanying corrosion also leaves behind ugly orange streaks, and chipping at the gaps to wedge in coins causes even more damage. Park staff says there are so many coins now that removing them could cost upwards of $40,000, and that if people keep it up, the iconic site might not survive the next few generations. 11. Islands are disappearing. An entire island off the coast of Japan has disappeared. Esambe Hanakita Kojima, a tiny uninhabited island near Hokkaido, was first documented in a 1987 maritime survey and counted as a part of Japan's exclusive economic zone. It had been ignored for decades because of its remote location and small size. But when locals tried to locate it years later, the island had quite literally eroded into nothing. Experts say rising seas, coastal erosion, and drifting ice flows probably wore away its sediment base bit by bit until it was gone. The disappearance has sparked concern in Japan's maritime circles, since losing islands can shift international boundaries tied to fishing rights, resources, and shipping lanes. And it's not just Japan. Other small Pacific islands have vanished the same way, with more under threat if seas keep creeping higher and storms keep battering the coasts. 10. A group of beavers saved taxpayers $1.2 million. Taxpayers in the Czech Republic just saved about $1.2 million, all thanks to a group of beavers' unique dam building skills. Officials have been trying since 2018 to build a dam along the Klobava River to protect its ecosystem, especially the critically endangered crayfish, from floods carrying acidic sediment-heavy water. But years of delays and red tape slowed construction plans. Luckily, while the permit process dragged on, the beavers got to work on their own. They built at least 4 dams across the area, doing exactly what engineers had planned, only faster and for free. Their hard work will help reduce flooding damage and protect river species without the government spending a cent on a new dam. Damn. 9. Astronauts love Oreos. Astronauts might eat science-y, freeze-dried food most of the time, but when it comes to personal treats, they pack an unpredictable list of comfort foods. At the top are peanut butter and tortillas, mostly because they taste like home. Hard candies come next, since they're easy to store and give a quick morale boost on stressful missions. Then there are chocolate bars and protein snacks. But one of the more surprising picks is Oreos. They've made the trip more than once. Even though they are crumbly, astronauts say the cream works like a glue to keep the halves together, making them space-friendly after all. If you've never had peanut butter and tortilla, get some peanut butter, get a tortilla, peanut butter, sprinkle some brown sugar on there, fold it up, throw it in a pan to grill it. Delicious. 8. The Neanderthals might have been more family-oriented than we gave them credit for. A Neanderthal child with Down syndrome survived to at least 6, and that finding changes how we see their whole society. Scientists first uncovered fragments of the child's skull and ear canal at the Cova Negra site in Valencia in 1989, but it took almost 35 years before experts realized that the bones showed traits consistent with Down syndrome. They nicknamed the child Tina, even though they still don't know if Tina was a boy or a girl. You can ask any family raising a child with Down syndrome. It takes constant care, extra medical attention, and a lot of patience. Even today. Thousands of years ago, those challenges would have been even harder to manage. Living past infancy with a condition like that would have been nearly impossible without help. That's why researchers think Tina must have had support well beyond just her parents. The whole group probably stepped in, proving Neanderthals were far more cooperative and protective than most people ever gave them credit for. 7. The FBI's Falafel Project. The FBI once tried to catch terrorists by tracking falafel sales. In 2005 and 6, right in the middle of the post-September 11th security panic, the Bureau launched a program called Total Falafel Awareness. Agents focused on dozens of grocery stores in the San Francisco and San Jose areas, hoping to spot suspicious spikes in falafel purchases. The thinking was that if someone bought more falafel than usual, it might point to Iranian secret agents quietly working in California. No, seriously, that was the plan. They first gathered a baseline of normal falafel sales, then waited to see if the numbers jumped. I have no idea how successful they were, since, unsurprisingly, the program was shut down pretty quickly after officials realized how shaky the logic was. But, for a brief moment in time, tracking chickpea patties was considered a legitimate counterterrorism tool in the United States. 6. Moldova's financial catastrophe. Since I'm talking about state-level disasters, let me tell you, we still have it better than some. In 2014, Moldova watched $1 billion vanish from its national banking system in just a few days. The money was siphoned through 3 major banks and funneled into shell companies, offshore accounts, and fake loans. The aftermath was a nightmare. The national currency tanked, protests broke out, and public trust in the government fell apart. An international audit later traced the scheme to a small group of insiders protected by political allies. By the time investigators figured it out, the money had been washed through so many banks, no one could get it back. Moldova's government stepped in to bail out the banks, pushing the cost onto taxpayers. And the guy accused of masterminding it? His name is Ilan Shor, and he ran off to Russia, where he's now running a new pro-Russian political group, still dodging a 15-year prison sentence. 5. Queen Victoria did the proposing in her time. In 1839, Queen Victoria was the one who did the proposing. Back then, that was virtually unheard of. In the Victorian era, women were expected to drop hints if they wanted to get married, never to straight up ask. But tradition flipped for a reigning queen. No one was allowed to propose to a monarch, so Victoria had to be the one to pop the question to Albert. They had been together before she took the throne in 1838, but weren't officially engaged. Once crowned, she couldn't wait for him to ask, since royal tradition strictly banned proposals being made to a ruling monarch. So, she asked Albert herself, and that was that. 4. The London Eye was only supposed to be a temporary structure. The London Eye was only meant to last 5 years. Seems hard to believe, right? When the City of London wanted a showstopper to ring in the year 2000, they built a giant cantilevered observation wheel on the South Bank. It's not technically a Ferris wheel, since Ferris wheels are supported on both sides, while the eye is held up on just one. Technicalities aside, the lease for the structure originally only ran until 2005, but Londoners, and the rest of the world, fell in love with it almost immediately. By its first anniversary, it was clear no one wanted to see it torn down. The attraction quickly became a fixture of the skyline, and nearby neighborhoods like Waterloo and the South Bank saw a huge boom in visitors. That sealed the deal, and the London Eye was here to stay. 3. That time Russia Domino's gave free pizza for a tattoo. In 2018, Domino's Russia ran a promotion that backfired in the most spectacular way. They promised free pizza for 100 years to anyone willing to get a tattoo of the Domino's logo on a visible part of their body and post a photo of it online. The marketing team figured that they might get a handful of hardcore fans willing to do it. Instead, they got absolutely swamped. Within hours, tattoo parlors were packed, and social media was flooded with photos. Some people even got giant, full back Domino tattoos to make sure that they'd qualify. Domino's panicked and tried to shut it down, limiting the prize to the first 350 participants before quietly ending the offer. But the damage was done, and the story went global. After the fiasco, Domino's had to tighten its promotional rules, adding strict participation caps and new legal clauses to avoid ever being buried under a tidal wave of pizza-loving superfans again. 2. Octopuses are, still, basically aliens. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that I've covered a bunch of octopus oddities before. I mean, they're genuinely, basically aliens. They have 3 hearts, blue blood, and brains that spread out through their arms. And to make things even weirder, they've also been known to open jars, use tools, and even solve mazes. But I'm here to tell you, they've discovered something else. Octopuses experience 2-stage sleep just like we do. Humans have rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, where all the dreams happen, and then slow wave sleep, where the body rests and repairs. Most invertebrates only get a single-stage rest, but octopuses developed both. That suggests that this complex sleep pattern could pop up more often in life than we think. Even stranger, octopuses have brain waves and shifting color patterns just like they do when they're awake, so they might actually be replaying their day, dreaming of what they did or saw, or possibly even, well, chasing their favorite snack. 1. The professor who forgot where his class was thanks to D&D. And finally, do you remember that professor who got lost and couldn't find his class because of Dungeons & Dragons? On February 14th, 2023, Professor Joseph Mullen showed up for his morning class right on schedule, only to discover the room was completely empty. None of his 40 students had arrived, which left him puzzled. He sent out an email asking what was going on, and a student replied a couple of minutes later, letting him know that he was actually in the wrong classroom. That morning, Mullins had woken up at 4 to play Dungeons & Dragons online with his friends in Australia, and the lack of sleep left him totally turned around. His wife thought he should come clean to the class, so Mullins later shared the moment online where he got 14.5 million views, proving that sleep-deprived nerds can be found at every level, no matter how many degrees you have. The fact that it was Valentine's Day and he got up to play D&D of all things is another matter entirely. So let's cover that another day. And that's a wrap. Anything interesting you'd like to add? Let me know in the comments below. But hold up, before you go, quick quiz. Around what year was the Heilongjiang hand cannon, one of the world's oldest surviving firearms, made? Was it A, 950, B, 1250, C, 1550, or D, 1750? Drop your answer in the comments below, and if you're in need of more interesting facts, well, check out our related video, 25 facts that made someone stop and say, I can't believe I didn't know that. From the guy who got swallowed by a whale to the safecracker hired to open a dead singer's vault, it's a good one. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, check out social medias, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you again next time. Adios.